Firstly, apparently, my role is to introduce the idea of the craft of automation. The title of the debate is clearly set up as a juxtaposition of two ideas: craft, things that are made by hand, and automation, the concept that machines and equipment can be used in the manufacturing process. And we're setting out in this conversation to see how the effect of these two things can either work together or against each other as we develop cities today, the ones in which each of us live and work, and particularly that we as engineers and architects shape and will leave as our legacy. The 20th century has been one of increasing busyness and pressure on time, or the 21st century, my apologies, has been one of increasing busyness and pressure on time and materials as we strive to create products, or in our case, buildings, more quickly, more efficiently, and with a greater eye on the bottom line. In the construction industry, we strive to provide adequate housing and transportation for these ever-expanding cities. Under these pressures, and with the changes that have happened since the Industrial Revolution started 200 years ago, it's extremely unlikely that we're going to go back to the idea of craft, the actual meaning of craft, which is things made by hand. Automation helps us to produce things, buildings or even the elements of buildings, more quickly and often to a higher quality and a more consistent standard than those things done by hand. Almost all quality improvement comes from the simplification of design, manufacturing, layout, processes, and procedures. We have an opportunity in the construction industry where so many of the buildings are unique, one-off elements that we don't end up repeating, to use some of the elements of automation to improve the process which allows us to create these buildings. If used appropriately, it would mean that they're potentially made to a higher quality standard, sometimes off-site, reducing the risks of construction, the health and safety risk of construction, and potentially the product can be of higher quality than those created by the imperfect people who are otherwise creating the buildings by hand. And yet we remain concerned that as we move through greater automation, that we're somehow losing something, and that we're going down a one-way street from which it's going to be extremely difficult to return. John F. Kennedy said that automation does not need to be our enemy. I think machines can make life easier for men if men do not let the machines dominate them. As he suggests, it's very much our responsibility to consider carefully what we're doing and to constantly question the decisions we're making. We must remain in control of what we are doing. We must continue to build on the advances in the industry as well as those in other industries to become leaders rather than followers. Our industry is not always known for its leadership in innovation, but this is a real chance where we can really push things forwards to develop buildings and cities for the 21st century and beyond. In order to allow us to construct for the future in a leaner and more efficient way, I think that we need to be brave and adopt, to a degree, some automated solutions and systems. We can and we should still look to make sure that we consider craft in our design, but maybe not craft as in handmade, but actually as in the art of craft. And make sure that that is brought in so that each of these unique creations that we deliver has that element of craft in it, but still using optimal techniques. And therefore we reduce the risk of sometimes annoying and costly mistakes that occur during the construction of buildings on a one-by-one basis.